everybody, and welcome back to the I Don't Know Running podcast, where we share our experiences that make running fun and sometimes not so fun. I'm Lewis, and I'm a self-admitted lazy ultra runner.
And I'm Mitch. I don't run.
You don't run?
No.
You're retired?
It appears that way.
On the mend.
I don't know if I'm on the mend at this point.
Just broken.
I'm trying to do the things, but we'll see what that does.
Well, from what I was told prior to hitting record, you have options.
Well, I'm
They're
waiting.
just not immediate.
Right. So, had an x-ray. Not good news. Need an MRI to determine what my options are.
Well, the one that you mentioned, at least, is an option. It's just a long-term.
Yeah. So
it wouldn't happen overnight.
So whenever, if surgery was involved, whenever I could get in, it could be 4 to months to a year.
Yeah,
So
yeah, I wonder. Yeah, I just wonder, I guess that's where, getting checked out sooner than later and just knowing, I guess, at least then
Right.
Yeah. Well, more to come on that. And on that front, you did put in for some lotteries.
I did. I put in for about every major that's out there,
And
I didn't get into any. So the
it's
world,
fortunate.
it's fortunate. But I'm signed up for about 4 races right now for next year.
Yeah.
I don't know that I mean, depending on what happens, I don't know if I can do any of them because I signed up for Bayshore too, which I always do. It would be the 15th one, and that's in May, the end of May. Depending on what happens, I doubt I'd be able to run that. And
Yeah, I guess finding out when you find out, I guess that'll tell us what your next year looks like.
Probably very little travel.
Little travel, little running,
or none.
Yeah,
because I don't know if I'll spend the money on it if I'm.
I guess if you can't run, maybe you can bike.
Yeah. But typically my travel includes hiking. So I might not be, so why go somewhere? And I'm not a beach person.
You can save for a big 2026.
Right.
Save up, have a big 2026 and get your last few marathons in for the 50 states.
Right.
Well, speaking of the majors that you put in for and didn't get into, fortunately, as it seems, but maybe not. Maybe, you know what? Maybe you go and have MRI done and they're like, no, we can get this taken care of. And you can be back out there in 6 months instead of a year.
Well,
and your second half of your year could be something.
We're going to shave that little
nub
off there and you're going to be out in a couple weeks. Like, yeah.
Never know. Know.
That's what I'm hoping for.
Never know. Chicago, they just did their lottery drawing yesterday.
I didn't get into that one either.
You did not. And I suspect part of the reason is because they had a record-breaking 160,000 people enter the lottery. That's insane.
Yeah.
160,000 people applied for the 2025 Chicago Marathon. So that was a record in and of itself. And then there will be another record-breaking field for the Chicago Marathon next year in October of 53,000 participants.
That's too many people.
Yeah, I've ran it once.
Maybe I'm glad I didn't get in. I don't like people that much.
When did you run it?
I've never have.
Oh, I thought you had.
Nope.
Oh, Clint and Dave have.
The biggest marathon I've run is Marine Corps.
Which was still 40,000.
30,000, I think.
Yeah.
Pretty busy.
Well, I've ran Chicago once, and I don't remember what the numbers were, but it was probably 40,000 then. I don't know, 40 to... And it was busy. Yeah. It was busy. I mean, Doesn't matter. I don't think that marathon matters where you are unless you are in the top 10. It's busy everywhere behind that. It is
or last. Maybe last is pretty open.
I'll bet it's still busy. I'll bet you the sweeper is a full curb to curb.
There's probably, because there's probably people that sign up for that have never run a marathon.
Yeah.
So people fighting for last.
So obviously running is still booming / growing, it seems. And it's in talking to Don and talking to Russell, they felt like that was happening this year as well.
Did you look at what's the entry fee on Chicago Marathon? Did you even look that up? Because I'm curious. Times 53,000 people.
Oh
that's a lot of money. It's a lot of money pouring into that town. Plus, how much your average 2 nights a hotel stay?
$245.
That's just And then your average night stay.
Oh my gosh.
You're probably staying 2 nights. I mean, a cheap hotel these days is $300 a night. So there is a lot of money pouring into that city that weekend.
200 and what did I say? $245 is just an easy 13 million. $13 million.
So if you're going to do that race, you're going to spend, $300 on an entry. You're going to spend a couple nights in a hotel.
That's only 245. Not 300.
Okay, 250. We'll round up. I was rounding up. Plus food.
Yeah.
I mean, you're looking at...
And that's like right around the food. They have a big food...
So you're looking at...
I don't think it's the same time, but anyway.
Minimum, if you drive in, a $1,500 weekend?
Yeah, because none of the hotels are cheap.
No. Unless you want to stay a long ways away, then you got to commute that morning.
Man, $13 million. See, that's I don't know running podcast just needs that. Just a marathon that can get around 50,000 entrants.
We need a little boost.
We don't even need that. We would only charge 200.
Right. And then, well...
We would just charge 200.
But it's got to pay for us to travel and review all these different races, straight on.
I think 12 million would cover it.
That'd be sweet. Imagine we could be at every race.
Every race we wanted. Nothing but just reviewing races.
We'll be there at the beginning.
One race to take care of everything.
And then we get to do what we want.
Put on one race a year, and that's it. That is that's
we could review the Antarctica Marathon.
And I'm sure there's no cost. That's all profit.
Yeah. They got sponsors.
I know there's people listening. They're like,
you guys,
I just know.
I want somebody to get on there and tell us how dumb we are again. That is my favorite.
It's 100% profit.
Because then we know we made an impact. If somebody gets on, if somebody comments and tells us how dumb we are, then always, my mom always said, make an impact.
Well, that's we either get stuff wrong or just say whatever, and somebody will come on and
say whatever we want. It doesn't matter. Truth does not matter.
We do like to fish, don't we? Need to get some new lures. So running, if you look it up, it is in a bit of another, well, I don't say bit of another, it's on a comeback. It was already booming.
Well, it was funny because we were talking to Clint and he's I was talking about one of the local races that has really died. And he's like, well, all races are like that. I'm like, no, they're not. I said, that's why it's so odd that race is dying. I said, they're doing something wrong.
Yeah.
If it's dying, because everybody else, I said, all these races are having record entries.
I would say though,
I think Grand Rapids was back up.
Grand Rapids was up. Fifth Third, whatever. Riverbank Run was up, or back to. Well, they may have been up, period, total numbers, but they were definitely back to pre-COVID numbers.
Yep.
Which is nice.
Yeah. And more, and the payout for that is more people are getting out and doing that stuff again.
Yeah, and I would say, though, that, too, for 100%, which is great. Also, I think what can cause a bump in a race is the fact that there are so many races.
True.
So you really got to have your ducks in a row and do it right.
You have to have a good race.
Because if you're missing something, there's 10 other races you can do that weekend. I ain't going to go back to it. I'm going to go to another one.
That gives me an idea for our next podcast. No, I really want to talk about that. What makes a good race? And we should walk through that.
Yeah, we should. We've kind of talked about it on the fringe a little bit here and there, talking about races specifically, but go into some things. So we just wanted to talk a little bit. These are just some quick bullet points of maybe why we're seeing this growth, but some things that maybe that are contributing to it as well. And these are just some high level, just boom, bullet points. Number one is sponsorships innovation, where the sponsorship money is coming from. Typically, we've seen it from shoe brands, apparel brands, but now they're seeing it from different avenues. Like an Uber Eats was an example of one. Yeah. Like an Uber Eats sponsored race. Like, where does that come from? So they're seeing it from different areas like that. And so that's starting to help put races on, because we know that, like from Chicago Marathon numbers, it's all profit. So you just got to put a race on. It's all profit.
Yeah.
So that's just additional money in your pocket. You get a sponsor.
How to get rich. Step one.
Put on a race.
It's
all profit.
All profit.
Number two, community involvement. Running is more fun with friends. I mean, that's been.
Yeah.
I mean, that really hasn't changed in 20 years, 30 years. I mean, probably since running.
I do know some people that really enjoy the downtime and just being by themselves. But
that's true. Yes. Yeah. And those, because I enjoy that at times as well. But I do enjoy the community aspect of it. What is going on upstairs? Did somebody break in?
No.
I have to?
Nicole's trying to get him to speak.
That's what it is. She's doing dishes. She's baking something.
So we were giving her a hard time, it was a couple weeks ago, about how loud she is. And she took offense. I'm not that loud. I try to be quiet. We gave her such a... So my suspicion is she's up there trying to get Rowdy to make a lot of noise, so it makes her sound good.
Oh, so all we can hear is the dog.
We can only hear the dog.
We can't hear her slamming cupboards and like pulling pans out and throwing them in the sink. And
what was your comment to her? I wish she would just make a bunch of noise and get it over with instead of dragging it on so long.
She said she was trying to be quiet. Obviously, it's taking her longer to do it. I'm like, well, that 10 minutes would be like 1 minute if you just did it really quick.
She was not a fan.
No. So anyway, community involvement helps the running community, because I mean, anytime. For instance, I probably would not have gotten into running as quickly as I did and as much as I did had I not found Wednesday nights.
Right, because that was a race. Like you guys turned, you crossed the bridge and it was on.
Friends, every Wednesday night, hey, what are you doing? What race are you doing? I mean, just it generates, and then you see somebody like, hey, come join us.
I remember
the community aspect.
When I was in a running group too, and what races are you doing? And it was great,
Yeah.
Too, and it would also save you money on travel and stuff if you traveled with people that you got along with. I did learn a lot from that, though. There's people that you can travel with and people you can't travel with. But there's definitely that.
Yeah. So the community involvement aspect is continuing. I will say that is continuing to grow. The hobby, the sport. Running experience must come first. And this is something that I think they mention this because of kind of like what we just talked about. Their races are recognizing the fact that the runner's experience has to come first. And I thought this was pretty neat. They said the running revolution. What is it? Running. What is this website? Sports Destination Management wrote this article up. And they said, we nail the basics. What they call the 3 S's, and that is safety first, and that has to be first and foremost. start time and organization, nailing that, and support, aid stations, toilets, communication, ensuring all participants has a remarkable, positive, fun experience.
My favorite saying, like, you said something about, the bathrooms and all that, is running with Rudy back in the day. Excuse me. Not feeling good. I'm like, I don't know. He's like, plenty of places to
to use the bathroom.
Puke along the way. There's woods.
Don't always need a porta potty.
So does that cover it?
I think if the route is along woods, yeah. There you go.
Or cornfields.
Cornfields
are great.
Beans aren't good. Potatoes aren't good. You got to have a little more coverage than that.
Soybeans are okay.
What's that guy sitting in the field for?
It covers the basics. That's fine.
Covers what needs to be covered. So nailing those things, super high importance. And the reason I think that this is something that's contributing to the growth is that races are focusing on these to make sure that the runners have a good experience.
Yeah.
And then they also say, as race organizers, and I thought this was very accurate. As race organizers, it's important to remind ourselves we are in the business of memory making. Think about your first marathon or whatever and how memorable that was, or a race that really stood out to you. It's a good memory, right? Mm-hmm. Even if it was, let's say, a bad, like catastrophic race, like you had a terrible race, but if everything else was good, whether that was I passed out, but they took care of me and I was fine.
I've had that.
Yeah. That is a memory.
How would you rate that ambulance?
Yeah. How would you rate that?
10 out of 10.
When you passed out.
I don't remember.
I remember I remember it as a memory making experience.
I remember getting out of the ambulance. I don't remember how I got in there. Weird.
So yeah, remembering that and trying to make those positive experiences is key. And the races that are doing that are growing. This was interesting, new versus retained customer marketing, and they just go into the specifics of what their focus is. 50% has to be on new, and 50% has to be on retaining experienced or runners that have been around the block. And so making sure they hit that 50-50 split so that they can retain and get new is super important. And then the final thing they mentioned, which I thought was interesting, new runner health trends such as saunas, NA beverages, and carbs. As in the whole low, no carb thing is kind of out the door now, and carbs are back.
Are they?
For running. Yeah. Which, I mean, they've never really left, but a lot of the what do you call it? Running on your fat reserves. What the heck is that? Why can't I think of that?
Well, it's
what it's called.
Basically, it's you're running on basically fat burning. I mean,
yeah, but why? It's a term
is it
for it.
Ketosis or
no? Well, that's a form of a diet right. When your body goes into that. But what is I can't think of it. I'll look it up. What was that? What would we say? What did we say we needed to say? I don't know. I'll look it up. Let me look it up. We were going to put that on a coffee mug or something. Remember?
Yeah.
But anyway, and then NA beverages, that's a huge one. That is had a huge growth. And I think also inviting that healthy lifestyle. It's way better to have that after a run. I mean, if that's your focus, right, is health benefits, and to put a 60 to 80 calorie NA down instead of a 200 calorie NA. Well, you're again, even going to that community aspect.
How about chocolate milk? Where's that on there?
I'm sure that's somewhere. It's just not on this list. And saunas have been a huge part of it as well. But anyway, yeah, it seems that we are in that continued growth maybe from pre-COVID again. races are seeing improvements in numbers or an uptick in numbers in the percentages, which is amazing for the sport because, I think it's a great sport to be in and maintain health if you can do it. If you can't, it's a bummer. You got to go get MRIs and get stuff shaved off your feet. But yeah, it's on that continued upward tick. And anything else on that?
Oh, I was just thinking about when you said the experience. I don't think Chicago has to do anything.
No.
Because
it's Chicago. Boston doesn't have to do anything because it's Boston. Even LA, I would say. Maybe Houston, New York. Yeah, New York definitely doesn't. London, Tokyo. And I think, but the thing of it is, those got there because they did provide, I would say, mostly great experiences. I mean, so like when I ran Chicago, there's never a need for me to worry about an aid station because there's a ton. You don't have to worry. Boston, same thing. Don't have to worry.
Yeah, because I've spent a lot of time talking about what I don't like when we talked about races. And like you said.
But we also hit what you did like about the race.
True.
So it's not like it's just negative.
No, not at all. But I'm just thinking like it's just funny when you said something about plenty of aid stations. Oh, I've experienced not enough aid stations and I won't be back.
Yeah, that's key. Unless you make it known, look, this is a no frills.
And I've done one
carry
like that
your
too.
own.
I've done one like that.
And then and that's that. If that's the expectation, you didn't feel let down by the race, right? So I think it's just important to, on the front end, tell on the website clearly what the race is about. So yeah, let's shift over to our weekly questions. This is something that's becoming a little more of a normal thing to have. I think it's fun to stay on top of these because it is coming from either new runners, experienced runners that are in the community of running. So I jotted down a couple. I want to just throw these at Mitch. And if you're hearing this, go ahead and comment as well. And let me do this serious more. Let me bookend these. So the first one I'm going to say is this. Should you still finish a run after getting hit by a 10-ton bucket truck?
Yes.
Yes.
It depends on how close you are. Like if it's in the first mile,
probably not. You go back.
Yeah. Probably go back and say, damn it.
Limp back. They were exaggerating a little bit, but they were, what did he say? Skimmed and probably pooped his pants, I would guess. And one of the comments was, no, if you get hit by a truck, you should run straight to the hospital. So
that's their advice.
That was one of again, keep in mind, these are lighthearted, fun, have fun. These are
I know, but I mean, the last race I did, the guy got clipped by a mirror. He finished that race.
He did. Yeah. Well, it wasn't a 10-ton bucket truck though.
Oh, it was just a mirror.
There's a difference.
I mean, he lucked out. He didn't get hit by the tire.
Yeah. So he did say he was exaggerating a little bit, but it was the point. Okay. Next question. And this is the serious one. I say serious. This one, it did make me think. And so this is a pondering question.
Okay.
If you set a best effort race with a negative elevation, then does it really count as a PR to you? They said to you, I would just say in general.
In general. Well,
I think it does. Right out of the gate, I'll say I think it does.
I think it does because I think that I've been doing some of these races just because they're in a state that I need. And I wasn't necessarily trying to set a PR. I was just going there to run it, but downhill races, right? They're set up. They are Boston qualifiers. So I guarantee you, if I qualified for Boston on that course, I'm going to run Boston.
It's still a race.
It's still a race.
Yeah.
It's a Boston qualifier. And those that know, Boston's a net downhill race.
That's what I know. It's about a 450 foot downhill it might be 470.
I mean, not
like
that's easy, but I don't know if these are necessarily easier races either.
That's why I preface this as kind of like no, this is a little more serious question because
or give it thought.
Boston is not an easy race.
No,
it's just not. Everybody says you can't PR at Boston because of two things: the crowds.
But that's your PR.
It is my PR. That's what made me really go, wait a minute, that's mine. And it's a net downhill. And then I started thinking, well, that makes nearly every point to point a potential downhill. Any loop course is the only course that's going to come back to itself and be net zero, right?
Right.
But any point to point's either going to be uphill or downhill.
Yep.
So you can't just throw those out.
Well,
and I wanted to ask you this. You did the White Mountain. What was the one out in Vegas or whatever?
Mount Charleston. Was in Vegas or near Vegas.
And that was significantly downhill, right?
Oh yeah.
But did that make it easy?
No, I was wrecked. My favorite part at the end of that race is I'm not very nice, but my friend Eric ran that race, and he talks a lot, and he was just telling me how he was going to beat my best time in that race, and it didn't happen. He blew up. So at the end, and we were basically arguing, and I'm trying to talk to him about his training, and he wouldn't listen.
He was going for
something that
315,
something crazy that he had not even close to or had trained for.
That's true.
And he went for it, and he fell apart.
But it was downhill. So
it was downhill. So at the end of that race, his quads were wrecked. I mean, he could hardly stand up straight. What did I do? I punched him in his quad for fun. It was funny to me. So he's like, ow, 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 ow.
It's funny now.
It was funny then, too.
Funny to you then, funny to him now, probably. Maybe not. I don't know.
I don't know. No, I think he laughed a little bit, but he couldn't get away from me. So it was kind of fun.
Oh, yeah. But just because it's downhill doesn't make it easy.
Absolutely. He learned a lesson that day. Like, he's like, that was a lot harder than I thought. I'm like, it's not as easy as you think. I think it can get you 5 minutes, though. I'd like to see you run one.
Yeah.
In shape and see what you think.
Yeah.
But it's hard to train for downhill because of the pounding.
And I think it depends on the downhill. Like, that one is significant, and I think you'd really have to train specifically for downhill.
Yeah, if you could do that, it would be
because that's like 2,000, isn't it?
I'd have to look it up because that one I think it was New Hampshire that I did this year too was pretty strong downhill. That was
I think it's again that same brand. I think out in Arizona.
It's the same Rebel series. Yeah, it was the same series.
So just because it's downhill doesn't take anything away from the fact that number one, you're running 26.2 or whatever. Right. I guess the distance is half marathon or whatever. But
you could potentially get a PR.
I think distance matters. I think distance matters. So if you do a 5K downhill, I think that's a big difference in a marathon downhill.
True. And what's funny about that,
you're not going to get wrecked as much over the long haul.
Yeah. To where you're like in some serious pain. I think
the distance makes a difference.
It absolutely does. And we know like Boston is not if
world record,
the world record's got an asterisk by it. So if they actually ran 2 hours at Boston, it wouldn't make.
Yeah.
It wouldn't
Is
count.
that because of the downhill?
Yeah. It wouldn't count.
Which is interesting because
but it's a qualifier.
Any point to point then, if it wasn't uphill.
Yeah. Anything that doesn't have a net.
0.
Or it can be higher.
A net positive.
It can have a net positive and it can.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense.
It'll count.
Yeah,
so
I guess that makes sense. Yeah.
Not all point to points are not, negative.
That's interesting. Well, final question. This was one I read on the Reddit running group. It is, how is your poop? And it says, I know some runners get quite gassy from breathing in so much air. Does it make your poop float usually?
I don't know that it makes it float.
More air pockets in the poop make it float. That's just my theory, at least.
I think that's a bunch of crap. And I think I'm definitely gassy. So if you're running with me,
you get rid of the gas before it gets into your poop.
I do. So if you run with me, you're gonna hear me fart.
So your poop is normal.
It is normal because I get rid of it otherwise.
I read that. It's fun just to scroll those. I saw that. This is a good one. I gotta write that one down. That's funny. Well, that's this week's episode. Go check us out on Facebook. Go check us out on YouTube. Do all the likes, subscribes, shares, and all of that. And with that, that's going to wrap up this week's episode of the I Don't Know Running podcast. Be sure to tune in next time as we share more about what we just don't know.
Until then, happy running.